Thanks for listening to GYST.
You're listening to Get Your Shit Together with Adina and Diane, a digestible health and fitness show for women.
Real quick, the content of this podcast is intended for general information only and is not medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Chat with your healthcare provider before making changes. Okay? Okay, cool.
I think they got it. Let's jump right into this week's episode.
Hi, babies. Grab your water. Here are my jugs. This is the jug of the week. I don't think I had it. Look, our jugs are about the same size now.
I know.
32 ounces. Is that what you got?
Fusty. I'm real fusty.
I found this at the Goodwill thrifting last weekend, and it was brand new in packaging. And maybe I did share this last week. I don't remember. Whatever. I also found a Yeti in my turquoise color. So it's all washed and ready to go. Mm-hmm.
That's so nice.
And no ice this week. Oh, I spilled.
Oh, no. There she goes. Maybe you need a straw top.
I'm actually seeing all these attachments now. I was at a friend's birthday yesterday, and she had a Stanley with a snack tray around the top. And then someone else there had Charms on her Stanley.
This is getting alarming.
And yeah, but that's information I didn't need for a number of reasons, because I like bedazzling things. And if you follow me on Instagram, you already know. Here's show and tell for this week, everyone. You've probably seen my boat and tote. Unhinged. We got some library pins here because the library is just the best. But I have an aggressive amount of Charms. So
wait,
if you're watching on YouTube,
in the frame. You have to go in the middle.
Oh yes.
Cover your face.
If you're watching on YouTube, we've got here a little cutie from Japan, the chicken leg. So it looks like actual chicken, right? So it looks like an actual chicken leg, but one that I picked up this weekend is crocheted toilet paper roll.
You need a bidet
also,
one.
I know. I don't know what that would look like. I guess just a toilet, right? Like it depends.
Yeah.
But isn't it so cute?
So cute.
So there's that. So I like bedazzling bags more than water bottles. And
I
then
just
the
feel
next
like bedazzling a water bottle sounds inconvenient.
Just clanking around. I mean, they're already kind of heavy, but if you're a bag lady like me, chances are you have like multiple bags that you're bringing along anyway.
But could you put your Stanley in a bag? It would rip. I mean, it would spill, no?
Well, this new bottle that I thrifted because it has a closed top like a Hydro Flask, so I'll just put it in my tote. But then I often have like my handmade crossbody, and look at this cute little orange that someone crocheted. She was at the farmer's market, and she had all these cute little fruits. I would love for her to make me a bacon.
So cute.
Piece of bacon or a steak, but little fruit. So that's part of my show and tell. Little Charms for the bags, not the water bottles.
So cute. I never remember to bring anything for show and tell.
I know, I'm like just trying to show my pals some fun stuff. I did get questions about this though, so I've dusted off the sewing machine. I was working on something for a friend this weekend, and I got to get going on a quilt for baby. But a little while ago, my mother-in-law knew that there was this like summer collection of fabric that I really liked, so she dropped by with a quilted tote, and it has ice creams on it and candies and push pops. If you remember, like as a kid going to the ice cream truck,
some of
and there was, I feel like,
look like parasites.
Oh my gosh, some of them do, like worms. Don't put that in my head. I actually had a meat print, and I think there were sausage links.
Oh yeah,
and someone was like, they look kind of like worms, which would also be on brand for the gut testing girlies. But look at all the pockets inside. Yeah, there's deodorant.
So cute.
We can't be stinking, so I don't know if they could see that. But some people asked me about the pattern, and I think you have to have an embroidery machine. I'll link it in the show notes because I know there are some girlies who sew, but I've just been aggressively colorful. So
she's Miss Frizzle.
Yeah, and we're 24 weeks as of yesterday. So
wait, were we on live when I made that call about your outfits, or that was in our
No,
meeting?
we weren't. It was after recording. Tell them, and this I definitely took as a compliment.
I was telling Diane that her recent aesthetic with her colorful prints on prints, reminds me of like when we were growing up, those Disney Channel shows, like the cool girl in the Disney Channel show, the aggressive, colorful, cool girl.
Yeah, like I'm picturing a purple lame jacket and like a pen with a feather on it.
Yep.
And maybe some bedazzled glasses. That would totally be me.
Yes. Like cat eye glasses. Absolutely.
Yeah, or your eccentric art teacher. Like that's the vibe that I'm going for. It just makes me so happy. I love it.
It is so happy. And here I am in my stinky
Hey, what are you
black
wearing?
tee again.
Do you have pants on?
I do. I am wearing, not pants, but can we get them in the frame? Ooh. No, I'm wearing my Lululemon bike shorts, ladies and gentlemen.
I think I saw those in the new training block, which I'm so excited about in SHH Club.
It's such a fun one. Did you finally do prenatal phase 2? I feel like you were talking about
Yes, that's
it.
what I'm doing. I did B-Day on Friday, and I was sweating so hard, but I love the labor prep that Adina and Coach V have put into this block. It just feels so good. I was showing the moves to Neil. I was like, my hips feel so good now.
Oh, yeah. Those are so good for the hips. I'm glad you started it. I knew you were going to like that.
Although there is one move where Adina has you putting your toes together like pigeon-toed. And I wonder if people are going to... Is she pigeon-toed? But
it's
it
good
just
for you.
rotates the pelvis.
Mm-hmm. You're going to be like, baby's just going to slide right out. Oh, I'll show and tell them about
Really hoping.
I'll explain.
I think I put on my story I'm trying to prepare to yeet this baby out of my body. So...
Okay, basically, the reason I have you pigeon-toed in the labor prep is because...
Adina's face is in a pelvis.
For those on YouTube. Here's the thing. In hospitals, many hospitals, doctors that are in a rush are going to put you on your back and are going to tell you to spread your legs, open your knees wide. Here's the problem. Look at what happens to the bottom of your pelvis when you do that.
It gets smaller.
It gets smaller. So if you're already on your back, so your sacrum is pushing up this way, and your knees are wide, it's going to literally close off the opportunity for baby to come through here. And then the hospital is going to be like, great, let's wheel you right into surgery. I'm not saying they're doing it on purpose, but it is a common outcome.
And you're working against gravity, laying on your back.
So if you are practicing a true hinge, so your sacrum is getting out of the way from unclenching your beehole, and you're pigeon-toed slightly. I'm not saying you should perform all your deadlifts like this, but specifically for labor prep, we're turning those hips, and then we're hinging. Look what happens to the bottom of the pelvis.
So big.
Look at the difference.
Yeah, I'm trying to...
Isn't that crazy? Don't you
That
think
is
a baby's
wild.
head could fit through here and not
That better be in
here?
frame.
Here and not here. So
Yeah.
just think about that. Get that hinge down. Get that internal rotation down. It'll make a massive difference.
Trying to bust it wide open.
Yeah. Aren't we always?
Something like that.
Yeah.
I saw some video and it was someone, she was like, I think she's a trainer and was talking about pelvic floor stuff too. And she was like, how we got into this is how we're going to get out of it. And she was showing different like hip openers and
That's
like,
a good one.
I was cracking up.
Yeah, that is a good one. I didn't bring show and tell today, but I will tell you about something cute because like I was trying really hard to be a cute summer mom this week. So
Cute.
as you all know, I don't know if you all know. I mean, we talk about crafts a lot, but like I grew up loving crafts. Like, let me into a Michael's and let me just tear it up, like
Get those coupons.
yarn. I need more yarn. Like I need more scrapbook stuff, and I haven't been doing as much of that, and now I have a 7-year-old daughter and I'm like, wait a minute, like there are so many crafts that she doesn't know about yet. And it got me
What did you
really
start
excited.
with?
So I'll tell you. So Donnie's so sweet. He does bedtime with the big kids, and he usually just like reads to them whatever story they pick. And over the weekend, we started talking about some chapter books that we remember growing up. I think we were talking specifically about like Roald Dahl and some of the like creepy, I don't know.
Classic.
Yeah. And then he was walking home from work and he saw Charlie and the Chocolate Factory in the bookstore that he passes. Like I didn't know if they would have it in English here. Like sometimes, the English selection of books is usually pretty slim.
Yeah.
But he found it. He was like, okay, we're going to start Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Minnie is so excited. She's like enthralled. And there's just like that magic of the chapter book when we're like, okay, we'll read the next chapter tomorrow. Anyway, so
Yes.
I was a cute mom today. And while the kids were at camp, I went to the craft store, the local craft store. And I picked up all the supplies to make a bookmark.
Aww.
And we made the cutest bookmarks today with little homemade tassels on them. I did buy yarn.
You gotta do a show and tell.
I know, I should have brought it up, but it's in her room, tucked into her little book. Anyways,
Yeah,
she was
sleeping.
so excited, and then she made one for Donnie also and hid it in his book before he came home, and it was just really cute, and I felt like it felt so good. I was like, back to my roots.
Yes. Oh, I love that. And all like the bead crafts and things that you like iron on.
Oh yeah,
Maybe some bedazzling. Is there a Michael's like equivalent there, or some kind of like Dick Blick art store there?
There are good options here. When I was in art school here, there were definitely more options around there. But there's plenty here. I mean, I don't have to go into like a full on and spend all my money on like paints, you know. It's like I would get carried
It's easy
away.
to do. That's me in the fabric store later this week. Yeah, so fun. So, been reading Charlie and Chocolate Factory. What about media?
Nothing. Literally nothing to report home. We finished The Bear, which like it wasn't my favorite season. I think there were episodes that were really enjoyable. I mentioned a couple on here, but on a whole, this season was not my favorite. I'll still continue to watch it. But
Is it more or less stressy than the first one? Because it's the yelling for me that I can't take right now.
It has elements of both. There's some episodes that are not like that, but yeah, it's stressful and just like, you know, it's a bummer.
A bummer, which I can't do.
Yeah.
We have been watching, I mean, I feel like in the summer I just don't watch as much, like where I'm trying to sit on the patio, have dinner on the patio, or read out there, but we did watch a bit of Alone. Have you seen any of that? It's a reality show, so I don't know if it's your
think so. Maybe Donnie
thing.
did?
But yeah, it's something that I always forget every season. So different
you
participants
definitely talked about it on the show before. You used to watch it.
Yeah, they're
Okay, that's why it
sent
sounds
out
familiar.
in the middle of nowhere, these survivalists and hunters and gatherers with some equipment and vlogging equipment. So they are the camera people for their adventure and trying to really just stick it out there until the last one is standing. Well, every time I forget that maybe I don't watch this while we're eating dinner, because I know that we both like to have like a dinner TV time with our partners, because there's always someone who didn't boil the water or ate weird beaver fat and they start burping and retching.
Ugh.
And
Are those the like retching quotes?
yeah, it'll say retching. And in last night's episode that we watched, someone, I knew when he was drinking this lake water that was just kind of there, he didn't boil it, and I'm like, you had a tin at your fancy like you had something to boil. Why aren't we thinking about this? And something pops up on the screen and says Giardia, E. coli, salmonella are common when drinking, like standing. So he's sitting around at his campfire and he's like, last night I didn't get much sleep because I farted and I shouldn't have, and a waterfall of diarrhea was in my sleeping bag, so I didn't sleep last night. I'm like, immediately I would be tapping out. I'd be tapping out.
Gross. They got to get that like Berkey water bottle, you know?
Yeah.
Fill that
I don't know
thing
if
up with
that's an item.
sewage.
Like they can bring gill nets, and I think they have bear spray, and some people bring arrows, but you have like 10 items you can bring.
It reminds
Someone
me.
brought salt last season.
Good for them.
A salt block. Yeah.
It reminds me of that, you know, that Office episode. Michael's in the woods and he's like, I have fashioned my suit pants into shorts.
It's like, you need to go this hard. How long are you planning on being out
He's
here?
cutting up his suit and putting it on as like a sleeping cap.
And some of them quit because they miss their families, and they're like, well, my wife didn't really want me to go, and she's gonna be really upset like if I come home like without that $500,000.
I'd be upset. Leave me and come
You were
back
there a
without
week.
$500,000.
One guy lost his quiver of arrows. It just fell off, and he was like this fantastic like professional hunter for 12 years, and he just lost it, and he's like, I might have to tap. And it's like, imagine why weren't you checking your things? Feedback he gets when he goes home.
Sometimes the stress,
Get back out there.
you know, takes over.
Yeah, it's entertaining. But other than that, just reading some books, listening to books. As I do, I've hit, I think, 50 books for the year.
Nice.
So still churning through those. Loving it.
Good for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's so nice. I'm doing nothing of the sort. And I saw you make blueberry muffins, so I made blueberry muffins. That's about it.
Yeah. Did you do a little topping?
I
Did you do a
actually
crumb top?
didn't do a crumb topping. I did a little sprinkle of like a thick sugar on top just to give it a little crusty. But
like a little crunch.
it was kind of impulsive. I just made it on, last week was the Jewish fast day of Tisha B'Av, which is where we mourn the loss of the temple. And I was hungry. And I saw my starter, and I saw you made blueberry muffins. And I was like, I'm going to make these. I'm going to eat it with some eggs. I made chocolate chip pancakes. We had eggs. Yum. I made a protein hot chocolate. I tried to like get all my calories for the day in at dinner.
Yeah, after fasting, before fasting. I remember you were online and you said, I have some batter. Yeah. I'm so ready to eat this.
I made batter. Yeah, that was yummy.
Good. I'm glad you had. I'm about to do those up again because I bought a bunch of organic blueberries. They're really hard. So I don't know if you know this, but Michigan, we have a lot of fruit, cherries and blueberries, especially by the lakeshore here. But it's really difficult to find organic berries here. So as much as I love to buy things locally, those things are heavily sprayed. Yeah. So I like to find organic when I can or purchase those. And then I made blueberry syrup for my lattes. I think I might mention it last week, but obsessed. And Neil said that he put some on cottage cheese this morning.
Yum.
Because we didn't have any jam handy, and it's delish and coffee. My lattes are so good right now.
I don't know if I could picture blueberry coffee, but I could try it.
It was trending on the TikTok, but it's good in matcha, and it's really good in my coffee.
I could get matcha. I could get behind that. Wait, I was gonna say something about blueberry muffins. Maybe love a blueberry muffin. What did you
bursting
say
with
after that?
flavor?
Oh,
sugary
blueberries. Yeah, we also, blueberries are very expensive here, and I don't really know what the blueberry season is, but I don't think it's now. Maybe it is. I don't know. It would make sense for it to be summer, but I don't know. Sorry, my ear's a little itchy in this headphone. So I just buy frozen blueberries. They bake up real nice in blueberry muffins, and it's much.
Do you toss them in flour so they don't bleed all over?
I don't mind if they bleed. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, pretty color.
Yeah. But yeah, that worked really well for me. And I just ordered more frozen blueberries from where we get our fruit delivered from, because I thought I'd make more blueberry muffins. And I think, like, I don't know if they're just weird blueberries or they messed up and gave me like elderberries or something, but they look like smurl.
You could make syrup out of it going into
I have to check what they actually are. I'll taste one.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to have this nostalgia, like the sweets. And I mean, this goes well with our episode for today. I feel like some people might sit out baking for a while. They're worried about sugar, but then you want to enjoy all the fun of summer. And this episode is going to be especially for the people who feel like they've done everything right. They've balanced their plate. They strength train. They're no stranger to being aware of or mindful of protein and fat and carbs together, but they're still crashing. Maybe you are someone who's got your jugs full of minerals.
All of Diane's jugs are full.
All of mine are full and salty even. So a lot of macaques, as I like to call them. But you're still dealing with some nagging symptoms. So maybe you're exhausted, you're crashing through the afternoon, you're not recovering well from exercise, you're waking up in the middle of the night. Who else? Needing more caffeine.
Motion sickness on those travel days.
Yeah, which I think a lot of people don't connect to sugar issues, is feeling sick in the car or on an airplane or the moment you step on a boat on the lake. Mm-hmm. It's not fun.
Yeah, but that general, like Diane said, just like you're doing things, you're balancing the plate, you're drinking the macaques, and you just are feeling groggy and exhausted and like you're dragging and you're like, how much more stuff could I be doing?
Right. And maybe you don't really have a sweet tooth, so it doesn't really add up. You're like, I have been sitting out the blueberry muffins, or, insert whatever sweet treat here. And so you're like, well, what gives? I've done all these things. I've avoided the big bad sugar, but still not feeling so great. So there are some gaps we're going to talk about in this episode, some common patterns that we see with athletes in Adina's programs or my clients and mine, and some things that'll take for you to balance your sugar, maybe some things that you haven't thought of. And yeah, it'll be a juicy sweet app.
Sweet juicy app. That's something I've been consuming too. Lots of watermelon.
The best melon. Yeah. I have one ready to. Every time I go to pick one, I forget how do you pick a good one?
Heavy.
I've knocked on them. Yeah, heavy. heavier than it looks for its size, right?
That makes it juicy. Juicy.
Also, my melons, same.
So juicy.
They do feel heavier than they look for their size. Yeah, and maybe they're not as fragrant, right, as like cantaloupe. When I pick that out, if it smells delicious, you know what, that's ready.
Yeah.
I've heard with watermelons too, if like the bottom has a certain coloring, but I don't know. I've definitely had a dud, and I get disappointed because it's not good enough.
I know, when they're like mealy or just like not sweet enough.
I just give them to Doug, and there's something about like I cannot hear a person with an open mouth chewing noise, but when I give him a slice of watermelon and he eats it like side to side, my pug, it's like the cutest thing. Or like watching cute dogs eat melon, it's like I could listen to it all day.
That's kind of like Ori. I could just like kiss his boogery face if it's got boogers all over it, but like if my older kids come near me with boogers coming out of their nose, I'm like, you are disgusting. Like Diane and I always talk about like, what is the moment where it switches from being like I'm fine with this to like get out of my face?
Yeah, when does that? Yeah, does a switch just flips?
I think so.
Yeah, so sugar. Yeah, so we want to do this episode because I'm noticing some patterns with all the HTMA reviews I've been doing with current clients, returning clients, even who I've seen go through various different seasons of their healing journey. And a common thread that I've seen is that these women are committed to their health. Like they are someone who their friends, family looking in and be like, wow, they really have their shit together. And truly, a lot of them do, but they are still facing some of these nagging things of energy crashes, not feeling so great. They prioritized their health. They do through exercise, through food, through movement. They listen to all of GYST. Like they are caught up to our 4th season, perhaps, but still not sure what pieces they're missing. And I'll see some common things in the HTMA, which we will talk about in this episode. So maybe they're dealing with some cycle imbalances, their period is still acting out or crashing in the afternoon. What else? What are some things that you're noticing too? Because I know in prepping for this episode, you're like, this is something that I'm seeing pop up with my athletes.
Yeah, same. It's like you're doing it. You're prioritizing movement. You're inside of the club. You're inside of STHH. You're signing up for your HTMA reviews, you're balancing your plate, you're doing the food stuff, like you're working hard on this thing, but still feeling like this thing keeps showing up, or I am not sure why I'm still waking up in the middle of the night, especially in my luteal phase, or dealing with that. That's a big one. And dealing with those dips in energy in this different season. And we've spoken to this on a bunch of recent episodes, but maybe it's like a year ago I was doing all the same things and I was feeling incredible. Like what happened? What am I doing wrong? What changed? So definitely want to speak to that.
Yeah, waking up in the middle of the night is a big one. Definitely the luteal phase, or not feeling rested despite spending a good amount of time in bed. And so maybe they notice that like, all right, that blueberry coffee was nice, but I also need a little something around lunch, and just feel like can't really get it going. So before they tell themselves like, well, I'm in my mid-30s, they're like, no, I know that there's something else, and we're here to talk about those gaps.
Yes. So something that I think I've been seeing a lot recently is like, I think a lot of us who went on this healing journey and started to feel better, then we kind of got stuck in healing mode. You know what I mean? And like obsessing over this thing. Maybe it was like we were dealing with a bunch of blood sugar issues, so we thought it was a good idea to eat like every 2 hours. And maybe in our really symptomatic state where like our blood sugar was all over the place, that was really supportive and helpful, but we didn't realize that that was a crutch and something that was just kind of like getting us to feel stabilized so that we could do the deeper healing work. And then we kind of just like got stuck there. I see this with training a lot too, where people are babying themselves in their training.
Right.
Because,
like just one day a week.
Yeah.
And hanging out.
They were in this place where they couldn't even get off the couch. And then they started STHH, again, a wonderful starting point. And all they could manage was that one day a week. And then they kind of convinced themselves that that's all they could manage. When like,
or were told they had exercise intolerance by a GP.
Mm-hmm. But even if they got beyond that and they were like, they just couldn't figure out how to expand their capacity. Yeah. And like everything, it's this thing we have to titrate up slowly. But if you kind of just hang out in that place where we're doing the thing that got us from those acute symptoms to feeling a little bit better and a little bit better, but then we kind of just got stuck there. That can have just a massive impact on energy and blood sugar. And I feel like I see those things a lot where we're just kind of treating ourselves like a patient, you know?
Yeah, kind of babying ourselves. And I will see that one a lot where people, this was trending in the alternative Instagram health space in the last couple of years, is eating every 2 hours. And yeah, for some people who were under chronic active stress, that might have made some sense for a little while, but then I want to get them to a place where they can go longer and their digestion does have a little bit of a break and we're not just constantly giving it some input. But another one that we talked about earlier in this ep is balancing. Maybe they feel like they're balancing their plate, but the macros are totally off. So those being carbs, fat, protein. So everyone is there, but it's not dialed in for what they need. And they're maybe having trouble learning what that ratio for their body is. So that could look like a common pattern I might see is, yeah, protein is there, but there's not enough or not enough carbs. So on the flip side, so people might have received the message, yeah, protein is important, but they're also starting to train. They're under a lot of stress. They're chasing their littles around the beach or the park, whatever. And then they don't have nearly enough carbs because maybe they're afraid of sugar. It could be for a number of reasons, but afraid of adding too much sugar because of those blood sugar issues. But we still want them to be on the plate too.
I feel like there's 3 big things we see with the plates, and it's so interesting to see how all of them kind of came to be, like what stories we were told. I think one really common thing we see a lot is way too much fat to protein ratio. People who were not eating dairy for so long and then started slamming dairy, and their plate is eggs and cheese and cottage cheese and
raw milk
and those
or whole
things
milk.
Are all wonderful, but you might not feel so good if you have such a high fat to protein ratio. And then, so that's one big picture that we see that could really make the difference in that energy shift, is sorting out that protein to fat ratio a little bit better. And we're not saying don't drink the milk, don't eat the cheese, don't cook your food in butter. Like, of course, do all those things, but gaining
it's easy to overdo. I mean, I've done it. Like, I love butter. It's important to me.
Yes, butter is important to me as well. But it really is. And if you are not feeling good in your body and you are feeling like you are dragging, even though you are eating these balanced plates with protein, carbs, and fat on your plate, if that felt like, oh, wait, that one's me, that's something to be aware of. Another one I feel like we see a lot is, like you said, I'm focusing on protein. So then we eat this massive portion of protein and are not putting an emphasis on the carbs when we're like, oh, yeah, there's some carbs on my plate. Like, there's a salad on my plate. And then there's like,
or it's vegetables, which they like, yay, love that we're including those. Yes, especially those non-starchy, like you're having a salad, summery salad or cucumbers, something like something that's mostly water. It's not giving you many carbs there.
Yeah, like I have noticed, especially as my training intensity has picked up, like I have been tripling down on carbs at my meals and needing more of those starchier carbs. Like I feel so good when I eat rice, especially on a training day, and I've been working hard and my muscles are getting bigger.
Oh, your muscles. Oh wow.
My muscles.
Yeah, and, something you said there is changing your ratios on your training days. It makes sense. Like those are the days you need more gas.
Yeah, your muscles are just like slurping up those carbs. But yeah, so maybe you're doing that big steak on your plate with some veggies and then crashing, and it's like, oh, I need more sugar. And then
I do see a lot of blood sugar issues when people are like heavier in a protein, or I have had a lot of clients who maybe came from like carnivore adjacent, or they were really focusing on protein, which great, love to see it,
love it,
but they need some more balance, especially if you're a cycling lady.
Yes, and if you're trying to get stronger in the gym,
yeah.
If you're like wondering why your training is not progressing, carbs might be the missing piece of the puzzle. But then that third thing that we see is too many carbs on the plate and not nearly enough protein. So these are the girlies who are like, I had protein, I had 2 eggs, or I had protein, I had a little bit of a chicken breast in my salad, like from the place that I picked up that salad where they probably gave you 2 ounces of protein, you know?
Yeah, they're so stingy.
So
stingy.
Chipotle.
That's not your chicken Chipotle.
Protein.
I do double it. I did go to Core Life Eatery. Did you ever go to one of those? I'm sure, well, when you were in New York, you had so many fantastic options. Here, it's a takeaway spot, but they have nice tri-tip steak I love. And they're not as stingy as some other takeaway places, but still I'm like, hey, can I have some more? Can you put a little bit more on that?
Keep going.
And if it's like some 16-year-olds, their first job, like they don't care. And sometimes they'll like just put it on.
That's nice. You got to get the 16-year-olds.
And not call extra steak. So something was like,
this
what
girl.
Feels like, who feels like police but isn't. And it's like the person that yells out that you got extra steak or extra protein on your bowl.
Truly. Yeah, but those are, I think, the 3 big pictures that we see. So listen to what we said and try to figure out which one of those you are, and then fix it. That will help your energy massively.
Right, they are common. I've been looking at so many food journals. It is optional for HTMA reviews. That's that done for you option that I have, but most people do it because, you know, it gives more feedback, more context that's helpful. And for women who go through my self-paced root cause reset course, we have guides and questionnaires for people to help build that awareness of what the right ratio looks like for them, given their stress, their activity, where you are in your cycle. Not that you have to check these boxes off each time, but after looking through some of the prompts, you might realize like, oh, this is how I felt an hour after my meal. Probably needed to up that protein or scale back the carbs, or scale back fat. So there's some different things to work through, and it's just things that we never were taught. And so it can be really confusing, right? When you hear all these things like protein, good. Yes. And carbs, good. Yes. And we want some butter. But we want to make sure that everyone's in balance for the goals and the current cycle phase that we're in, and so on. So some things to think about that we like to break down practically.
Yeah, and it does take trial and error. And like we mentioned, like if you're the person who was like, oh, I was feeling so good a year ago, it takes trial and error. And then it takes trial and error again if you're not feeling good again, because things shift with the stresses in your life, or if you have had a pregnant and postpartum season since then, or if you've had a big stressor or a massive shift, or your body composition changed. Like things keep changing. And this is why, like, sometimes it's really nice to just do a tune-up with a coach, even if you've worked with someone before and then you get to a place where you're not really feeling good. Maybe that's a time for like a retest, and just have someone in your back pocket to help you look objectively at some of this stuff and navigate the stresses that came up for you and why some of these things might be shifting. Another thing we're seeing a lot is just like people not being so honest about if they are doing these things for every meal. So maybe you think of yourself as a person who balances your plate, but then if you had to really write it down, you would be able to call yourself out that, oh, it's summer and I'm all over the place with my kids and we don't really have a schedule and I haven't really been meal prepping, and maybe I threw the leftover chicken on their plate and then realized there was no food left for me. So I was kind of like just snacking on some rice cakes and cheese that I found.
Or your toddler took some of your meal, like your plate was balanced for you, and then you had a little person taking your food off your plate.
Did I send you that picture this week? No, I think I only sent it to Donnie. Oh, literally exactly what you said. Ori's been doing this new thing where I'll make him his plate of breakfast and we sit next to each other on these bar stools in my house, and he pushes his plate aside and just like drags my giant plate of potatoes and eggs towards him.
He's like, that one looks way better. I still think about baby Abe eating your sushi when you were out of the room.
Yep, always. They're just little food thieves.
Yeah. So it is. I mean, you can think about, like, I know that I had that for breakfast yesterday, but oftentimes like we're forgetting, like, I don't know exactly what my plate looked like a few days ago. So all the more reason that I encourage my clients, whether it's Root Cause Reset clients or my HTMA clients, to jot things down. Like, they don't need to weigh or track. Certainly some of my clients who are strength training going for a goal, they're already doing that. So they just upload their data from an app into my system. But there are others who like write it in their notes for a couple of days, like just loosely, like brands are helpful for me to see, or approximate amounts. Like I had 2 chicken thighs with half a sweet potato, something like that, because that context is helpful for me to see at a glance. And you'll probably notice some gaps of like, oh shit, really, I was grazing there, or was lighter in protein and I crashed an hour later after my breakfast. So
let's spend a second there on the grazing thing, because if you are a mom, you might feel really called out right now. Maybe you are eating 3 balanced meals, and then in between those meals, instead of giving your digestion a break and letting your blood sugar figure out how to sort itself out, you are just constantly grazing on your children's plates or something in the snack drawer, and just input. And so that's going to have a function, besides for the fact that usually when that behavior is happening, we're kind of disconnected from our bodies, and maybe there's stresses and we're not really digesting that food. Mm-hmm. That's going to also have a similar impact on the body as that healing mode, like eating every 1 to 2 hours, where our blood sugar can't figure it out on its own. Like, it's such a buoy to the blood sugar that if we take that away, pew, like big old crash.
That's a crash.
I do those sound effects myself.
Fancy editing.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, I'll see that quite a bit is grazing, and I'm happy that, you know, eating more frequently works for some people in some phases. But I think too often when we hear that trend, digestion and function is so ignored, and so often people are doing that, just constantly grazing, maybe while they're on the go, feeling really bloated as a result because they're distracted eating. And I know that there are going to be seasons where you're just going to fed is best, especially if you're chasing little people, but beyond that, like, what other functional support are we bringing in for digestion? So that's something that you've heard us talk about on other episodes, to avoid that bloat and just input and things sitting and churning in your stomach longer than they need to. But yeah, I know we're focusing on blood sugar here. So grazing and constantly having some input can be really stressful on your blood sugar over time. So I like to get to a place where people can go longer periods in between meals. But if you feel like you're just ravenously hungry too, that's something to think about what did that plate look like, and those macros that we were talking about earlier. How can we balance it so you have more long burning fuel and energy, so you are not constantly so hungry 2 hours after, or an hour after your meal?
Yeah. And like we said, these things shift in seasons. So like, yeah, obviously we're not talking to you if you're going through an extreme acute stress right now, or in your first trimester of pregnancy or something like that. Like, it's gonna look different. But if you're trying to be in more of a maintenance mode, and you're trying to figure out, why am I not feeling good? Why do I not have stable energy? Why are XYZ exhaustion symptoms still plaguing me? That's definitely something to look at, especially if you're a person who is like not really prioritizing building your own plate, and then you're just kind of like inhaling your children's leftovers before the bedtime hustle or something like that, which we've all been there. And then another thing that I see too, which this is one of those where like, I'm like, I could get some backlash for saying this, but I think we're seeing a lot of too many healthy packaged foods instead of stuff from the ground or that had a mom. Like, I get it, convenience is important. Sometimes your side dish has to be the Boulder potato chips, but like, have we taken this too far? are we eating too many things that came from Whole Foods or Thrive Market and not from the ground or had
Calling me out. I do love my Thrive Market. Yeah, but it can, and some of those things like granola butters or crackers or lesser evil popcorn, cheese curls, no cheese curls. It can be exciting because you finally found something that maybe your stomach doesn't want to rumble with, or it just tastes good, and it can be easy to overdo some of those.
Yeah, I think.
And I mean, you get that box and you're like, I gotta try everything.
Yeah, that's something I've had a perspective shift on since I moved here, because I used to rely on a lot more of those foods and I didn't feel as good, and I also like ran out of money, you know. And then we moved here, and just because those options aren't as available here, at first I was like, oh no, what are my kids gonna eat? But like now we just eat meat and fruit and we feel so much better, you know?
So sometimes boring or simple, but yummy.
Yeah, no, not necessarily that. I don't mean don't eat those things. I just mean like examine if you are not feeling well and you are relying on them all day, every day.
Yeah, that makes sense. We've said it before, focusing on more food that came from the ground or had a mom.
Yes,
so love
priorities.
Yeah, I'm at the end of my second trimester, and I've had to reassess how things are working for me because I do get hungry more often. Thankfully, not having aversions like I did early in pregnancy, where packaged foods and the healthier ones were things that I relied on a little bit more just so that I could eat. But
salty
now
and crunchy.
that I have a lot more variety or tolerance to those things, I'm getting back to more of my home cooked faves.
We love that for you.
Yes, love it. Something else that we'll notice sometimes, especially with our goal getter, like driven clients and athletes, is perhaps they're trying to nutrition perfectly, right? And not enjoy their food. So you might be thinking or seeing food in terms of how much vitamin A is in this and how often am I adding organ meats to my food. Or I think of this was on my explore page, and I sent Dina a couple. Someone was doing a parody of Nara Smith, who has this really soothing voice. And at first I thought this was satire, but I was like, oh, these people aren't eating these things unironically. Or ironically, it was someone had raw ground beef, raw honey, jiggly cold bone broth, like jelly, which, I mean, not to yuck your yum, but let's be real. The point was, let's be really honest. Like, yes, these things are nutrient dense, but are we really prioritizing nutritioning perfectly over actually enjoying our food? So the reason we're connecting this to blood sugar is, are we trying to health so hard and stressing ourselves out about micromanaging these foods, which in turn, like, remember, food is going to nourish us beyond a nutrient level. And if we're seeing it just as like this thing to perfect, or micromanaging all the micronutrients in our food, or eating things that, let's be really honest, don't seem very joyful to eat.
Yes.
That can be a stressor on your adrenals as well. I mean, there's another girl, and I have to think that this is a satire. I think it's like Butter and Steak Girl or something, and she's walking down the street eating a stick of butter, and she was making like an omelet, but all she eats is ground beef and like raw eggs. And I was like, this is not healthy. This is not healthy. What are we doing here?
Yeah, like if you heard us talk about blueberry muffins at the top of the episode and you were like, oh, blueberry muffins, like I used to eat those all the time as a kid, I haven't had them in so long, like, and you got like flooded with memories about a food, it's like, that's a good sign that maybe you should get a sourdough starter from a friend and make yourself some sourdough blueberry muffins with real sugar and real flour, and just like enjoy it, you know, eat it alongside some eggs, so we still are balancing our plate, but it doesn't have to be a almond flour muffin with protein powder and, you know, all these substitutes that make it taste bad.
Yeah. Oh, almond flour. I like that there are a lot more options now for the people who, I mean, I have many clients who do need to be gluten-free for a while, or can't do sourdough either, but all the almond flours lock you up a little bit.
Yeah. The point is, are we sacrificing the joy in food for the sake of nutritioning so hard?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, the perfectionism of it is a stress. That's a lot a lot of mental gymnastics to have to think of like all the micronutrients in food or,
like I think the point we're making here is just like, can we bring more ease to it? Can we bring more nostalgia and joy and ease to the whole food thing?
Yes. Now, with that in mind, might seem odd to have us speaking about minerals here in mineral testing, but I want to put a reminder here that when I talk about the hair tissue mineral analysis, HTMA, mineral testing, my clients who have gone through it know that we are not micromanaging and chasing down each nutrient. I like to see it as this is helpful context, especially for someone who, I have many clients who objectively have done so many things, right? But they're like, wait, why are my labs normal, but I still am so exhausted? And so I have a lot of clients with healthy mindset and approach to this test. They're like, let's just see some information and maybe we can fill some gaps. So some gaps could exist with minerals. And when we do HTMA testing, here are some common patterns that I'll see from my clients who are doing everything right, but still crashing, still feeling these energy crashes in the afternoon, that sort of thing.
Wait,
so
can I interrupt you for 1 second? I just want to give a little more context to that because I do think that was a funny transition. I think what's really important to understand here is if you are a person who has been healthing so hard and listening to all the podcasts and getting all the courses or doing all the master classes, and you've been trying to puzzle piece your health together and consuming all of this information that is overwhelming you, and you have spent years being like, I am doing all the stuff that everyone is telling me to do, and I am still not feeling good. That is a case where a coach that is going to look at your specific labs and helping you to streamline it and dial it in and simplify it is going to take a massive weight off your shoulders. And just the feeling of I am no longer floundering and trying all of the things and wondering why I still don't feel good, to be able to see that receipt of like, oh, this ratio is why I don't feel good. And we can very simply focus on this thing as opposed to the 30 other things in the modules or the 50,000 other things that I've gathered over time from all the hundreds of podcasts I've listened to.
Yeah, all the things that it could be. I love that you brought that up because I know there are ways that people could do the HTMA on their own or maybe try to learn how to analyze it on their own. But I mean, as a practitioner, there are so many things, so much nuance to look at with that test compared to someone's intake forms, their routine, their goals, that to do it on your own, I'd be churning and burning minerals just trying to figure that out. Or I have had some clients who are like, I did this on my own and I just don't want to waste time. Like, I'm efficient elsewhere. Like, I don't want to waste time. Just tell me, where my gaps are. Let's do this. And I love clients like that. But some common patterns that I'll see among clients who are doing everything right but still dealing with blood sugar stuff on the HTMA is their magnesium is missing in action or they're churning through it. And we love magnesium for so many things. I think it's been getting a lot of attention, which I like, but we're also forgetting some other key players here, which I'll talk about in a second. But they're churning through it. Magnesium does so many great things for us, but plays a role in blood sugar regulation. So if it's just nowhere to be found, or your body is burning and churning through it, then people end up feeling depleted. Their sleep may not feel as restful, or maybe waking up a little bit after they fall asleep in the middle of the night or during that 2 to 4 a.m. blood sugar window. I'll see that a lot.
Yeah, and the thing that's crazy about magnesium, like you said, it's gotten more popular, but
yeah,
there are so many scenarios that you just mentioned in that one sentence. It's like, maybe you're A, not utilizing magnesium at all. Maybe B, you're taking the magnesium, you're really taking it, but you're just not realizing how quickly your body is burning through it, and the dose that you're utilizing is far too low for what you actually need. Or maybe you're taking the magnesium, but you're not paying attention to any of the things that your body needs to actually use the magnesium. So we need to focus on some other minerals first, or you're taking magnesium, but you're just taking like a shitty form and your body's not actually using it. So like that's 4 different scenarios of why magnesium could be a huge piece of this puzzle. And like, we would have to dial in what is going on there. Like, it's not as simple as like magnesium good, health Instagram tells
magnesium
me
low,
magnesium good. Like,
I need more, I need this. Yeah, magnesium powder. I'm glad you brought that up. Those latter 2 scenarios especially are common. So I might look at also like what supplements is this client taking, because maybe she took too much too soon. She's not ready for magnesium. And these minerals, like,
wait, slow down there for a second. Like, even though Instagram told you magnesium is the thing you need, you might not be ready, and that could be the whole thing.
Yes, I have seen that very often. Like, people are like, I heard it was good, and it's like, props for the energy, the enthusiasm around it. But looking at your test, at your receipts, we went too fast too soon. I see that one a lot. Or taking a form of magnesium. There are 25, 26 different forms of magnesium, and some of them I really don't like. Some of them are going to make you shit. And I have a lot of clients who already have gut issues. So I'm like, girl, let's not with this one, and we'll try something else. But I might also see in her supplements that she's taking something that's depleting her magnesium further and not being aware of it, because these minerals, they have buddies, but they have like other minerals that they don't like when they're together. So we're not just looking at one thing on a test. So if you were to DIY this on your own, you might not be aware of all the other context and nuance that we need to be aware of. So minerals, there's a lot to it. I love that Adina's hopping in, slowing me down, because I could just go all in. I mean, right before our call, I was looking at sound effect
that I mixed in.
I love it. Another scenario I might see is sodium, potassium, maybe MIA. So when those are, or just imbalanced, very much so, I'll see these kind of, they're buddies. We want them to be kind of in balance with each other, but when they're really off or nowhere to be found, thyroid hormone and glucose can't get into the cell. So something that I've seen with clients who are like, I got my thyroid labs checked, like I'm exhausted and it's not adding up. I'm trying to do all the things right, but my GP, my doctor told me things are normal. So I love that they followed their hunch, because sometimes people might have normal labs there, but what's happening is thyroid and glucose hormone. Oh my gosh,
it's
why is
such a
that
hard
so
word to say, by the way. You know what's the hardest thing to say is hormonal birth control.
Hormonal birth control. HBC.
Yeah, so if you're the girly who's using everyone's affiliate links and you're buying the shitty magnesium and you're buying the LMNT, and then we look at your HTMA and we're like,
where's your potassium?
Where to go? And you're not using
Where
magnesium.
is it?
Yeah, so just,
I do like LMNT, and I still don't know, is it LMNT or is it element? I don't know. I think it's element.
People say both.
LMNT.
Yeah,
both. But maybe we need a different electrolyte pack, or we need to focus on potassium in another way. That's really common. Sodium gets a lot of play, and I think because a lot of people are thinking these electrolyte mixes are marketed towards athletes, and you are churning sodium. You're taste your sweaty lips after a sweaty workout, and it's clear. But these are another couple main minerals that are often overlooked because people are leaping to magnesium first, but we can't just think of one of them by themselves. We're thinking about them together and what's going on.
Yeah.
Another thing I look at is manganese, or there are some ratios that I look at on the HTMA, and one called the blood sugar ratio. So what are calcium and manganese doing? Or calcium to magnesium. And I like to look at manganese because those can be some markers that clue us into blood sugar. So there are a few things that we look at on the HTMA. It's not just minerals in isolation, but they give us clues into different systems in the body. Everything from detoxification to digestion to blood sugar, which is super cool.
Yeah, it is the coolest. And then something that I'm seeing majorly on the training side of things when it comes to blood sugar and energy issues is people, you need to build more muscle. And like we said at the top of this episode, and like we've said on a lot of recent episodes, if you are still at your starting point, something is afoot. Like if you started something like STHH and it got you off of the couch, and that is wonderful, and you started to feel a little more energy, and you started to feel stronger, and things that you had to do in your daily life started to feel easier, but then it kind of dropped off a little bit, and you were like, wait a minute, I'm still training regularly. Like, why is my energy bottoming out? And a few things I want to bring your awareness to and ask you to be honest with yourself about if these things are happening. Number one, are you just going through the motions, potentially with the same kettlebells that you bought when you first started STHH? Number two, are you thinking that you're prioritizing your training week over week, but really it's an afterthought, and it's like, oops, I didn't have time again, so either I skip my workout altogether, or I only trained once, or I'm being kind of inconsistent, I'm doing the leastest a little bit, but I'm also not really training. Like, these are things where we may be in STHH, we may be in the club, we may be touching our kettlebells, and that consistency is amazing, and I am so proud of you, and having a movement practice is amazing. But if you are still trying to figure out, like, what is the gap here? I'm doing the thing, but I'm not getting the results I want. I'm not building muscle. If you're a person who was looking for body composition changes and you're like, I'm out of the pregnancy season, I'm out of the postpartum season, I'm just kind of living my life, like, why aren't things shifting? And that's something that you're really looking for. I need to ask you, have you bought heavier kettlebells? Are you working hard enough in your training sessions? Are you making training and movement the priority that it absolutely needs to be? And if you haven't listened to our previous 2 episodes, I think it was, we talked a lot about how I've approached this and what it looks like to really be prioritizing your training in a season where you are trying to make a massive shift. But what that looks like is you need heavier kettlebells. You need to be working hard enough in your sets so that those last 2 reps feel like hard, like the load is slowing down, or you are feeling like...
I like when you give that cue where, like, choose something where it would be hard to do 8 reps here.
Yes, like do 5, but it should be, like that should be the range we're looking at. We give really detailed notes about what it should look and feel like. So read those and then be honest with yourself. You can likely lift heavier, move faster, push harder than you currently are, but you're scared to push yourself out of your comfort zone. I promise you, everything you are looking for is on the other side of that push, is right outside your comfort zone. So training should feel hard. It should feel uncomfortable. The whole thing is applying this stress gradually over time, increasing that stress so that we get this adaptation where our muscles grow. We just had such a fun, someone from the club just messaged me and V and was like, I was on vacation with my husband and I was looking in the mirror and he was like, is something wrong? And I was like, no, I'm just admiring my quads from this last training block.
Quadzilla.
And yeah, like when you push and when you lift closer to the heaviest thing that you can lift in that session, when you are trying for that speed output and you are really being intentional and putting those training sessions on your calendar and being like, this is a non-negotiable for me and I will not move it for anything and I will not cut it short for anything. I will not cut out the accessories this training block. Like, I will do this program as written and I will push myself hard and I will buy the heavier kettlebells and I will upgrade and show up to the live calls because I know that's the missing piece for me. Like, to have anyone who has been on a live call or who has been with us in person at those club events knows that it is just an entirely different energy. And if you've been training alone in your living room for 2 years with the same kettlebells you started with and you're like, why aren't my muscles growing?
Yeah, it's hard to push yourself so low to low.
You might need that live call. We've had so much feedback from clients who show up to the live calls that they're like, I left the call and now I'm ordering heavier kettlebells because I realized I could do it. Yeah.
That's so great. I love when I can make it to those. And I also mentioned this before, but I definitely push myself harder being in a gym, going to a gym, and they don't have kettlebells that are as nice as the ones that I have at home. Yes, but they're the ones that I will use and I will work harder. And there's something to, like, even if I'm not speaking to other people in the gym, they're doing different workouts, they're minding their own business, but being around other people who are pushing themselves in the gym makes me push myself harder. I'm not going to just sit there and lay on my mat like I could on my couch if I wanted to take an extended rest and like scroll Instagram. Like, I'm getting in and out. So that's nice. But when
I'm glad you mentioned that. That's actually another great tip, because we just had that come up in the club. Somebody was asking about, like, my sessions are taking a really long time and I'm like not sure why. There are rest timers in the app and we write out exact rest periods that you should be taking. I highly recommend, if you're a person who's not moving the needle on your training, go through the session following the exact rest periods, set a timer, and the second that timer goes off, start your next set and see if that doesn't make a big shift for you as well. As far as, like, we see both sides of the spectrum. I see some people rushing through their workouts where their rest periods are so short that they can't possibly be pushing themselves as hard as they should be in the sets.
Or recovering appropriately, and then they're stressing their adrenals out, and then I see that on their HTMA when they're a fast 3-4.
And that's much more cardio than it is strength training. But then we see the opposite side of the spectrum too, where people are like, I start my rest period, I'm going to go throw in a little laundry, I'm going to go make some dinner, and then they come back and it's like, we could do that for a season, but if you're like, I am trying to get the most out of this program that I signed up for, what's Doug doing over there?
He's been making all kinds of noises, and you were talking, so like Adina can mute my part of the audio when she was, I mean, you were on such a good tear, but he was snoring, and now it's like he's licking his face, so I don't know if that's going to be on audio.
So I wonder if the girlies will be able to, but we'll have to see.
I could hear my breathing in last week's episode because I'm late second trimester, and after I talk, I'm like,
I was going to say, I remember when I was pregnant with, was it Ori or Abe? I don't remember, one of them. I had to stand for podcast episodes, otherwise it was like
crushing your lungs and your diaphragm.
Like too much smoosh. Even if I would just like consciously sit upright, I felt like that made a big difference in the audio. But yes, as I was saying, before Doug so rudely interrupted moi. Yes, rest periods. Either they're too short or they're too long. But if you're like, I am trying to make this massive shift in my muscles, then you need to be observing those rest periods. And just another quick note, I know if you've been listening to this podcast, like, you probably know this, but building muscle is such a massive player in the balancing blood sugar game, because
I was like hoping we'd bring it home there, because people are like, well, wait, build muscle, like, I don't need to have a fat, juicy, functional ass.
Don't we all?
Right, but like they might be like, well, why? And I don't want to bulk up. And like, heard, understood.
Heard, chef. Yes, chef.
But yeah, muscle is expensive tissue, and it makes your insulin sensitivity even better.
It's just like a little straw for that glucose. Like, you eat carbs and it's just like,
give us a sound effect. Yes. Your muscle's like, give it to me. Right. And I mean, I have a feeling that if girlies are listening to this episode, so probably a lot of our clients, a lot of our mutual clients too, they're already strength training, they got some bells, but I mean, maybe there is someone who wants to eventually be there, but they still have hesitation around, like, I don't know about strength training, I don't know if I like it. Like, full stop, like, the best thing you could do lifestyle wise, when I'm looking at your HTMA and things are imbalanced and you're exhausted, and when you get to the lifestyle section of the custom plan I write for you, it's not like this cute suggestion and I'm like, maybe do strength training, maybe do STHH. It is the thing that will get you the most out of the least on your lifestyle front. Like, we're going to dial in food. We're going to think about your main minerals and minding your mental, emotional stress. But it will give you the most benefits doing strength training, building muscle.
Yeah, actually, this is totally not related to this episode. I mean, it is, because it's about blood sugar. I totally forgot to mention this on, which episode was it? Was it pregnancy pregnancy don'ts that Diane does.
That Diane does, yeah.
On that episode, we talked about the glucose test.
Oh, it's coming up for me.
Yeah, and I mentioned this when I did that test in my pregnancy with Abe. But one of the best things you could do for yourself is straight from that doctor's office, get yourself some protein, and then go on a hike with a friend.
After you drink the drink?
Yeah, go on a hike with a friend or do a training session. Like, put that sugar to work, and you will feel much better than if you just went home from that massive glucose glug and sat on your couch.
That glucose glug. And okay, validate me or just reassure me. I always see things that are like, you know, you can't prevent gestational diabetes. And I'm like, they say things won't make a difference, but anecdotally, strength training, I would think, and building muscles. Right?
Yeah.
Right? That's a good thing.
And also, like, eating nutrient-dense foods and
yes.
all the other things.
Yes, that too. Mm-hmm.
It's so, they love to tell you that you can just have
You can't do anything.
You have no agency over your health is the point.
Yeah, that's bananas. Mm-hmm.
Bananas.
So build your muscles. And the last thing, I mean, we've talked about this a little bit here, but if your blood sugar is still on a roller coaster, you're still crashing, you're still feeling like you're waking up in the middle of the night, or your luteal phase is brutal, sleep maybe gets worse during that time too, you get more moody, more hangry, we have to look at stress, that being your mental emotional stress load. I will see this sometimes, especially with my goal getter clients when we're doing their HTMA or her HTMA retest. They're someone who has a great supplement stack. Maybe it's one that I've made for her. Like, this is the best supplement stack for you. She's buying the grass-fed steak. She's cooking most of her food at home, and she's diligent about her sleep hygiene, right? Like, checking all those boxes there. And still, her mental emotional stress load is so high. It is hard to supplement out that stress when there are factors like maybe a really stressful romantic relationship, like you just went through a breakup with a toxic ex, or you have a job that you absolutely hate, or I don't know, like family issues, or a combination of those things. Maybe you're doom scrolling and you're stressing about the presidential election that's coming up in a couple of months. Unsubscribe.
Yeah.
Like, all of that's going to do a number on your blood sugar. So yes, when we do nutritional therapy, we like to think of things holistically. And most of the work that I focus on in HTMA reviews or in RCR is taking the physical stressors out of your stress bucket, those being dysregulated blood sugar from not eating enough food or balancing your plate appropriately, minding your minerals, yes. But we would be remiss if we didn't also spend some time talking about the mental emotional load that we can control.
Yeah. And this one is so hard to be honest with yourself about too. We've talked about this on previous episodes, but that's something that's sometimes so nice about the HTMA is, like, if you are that go-getter, which we love you, we love to work with you, we love when you just show up and you're like, tell me what to do to fix it. But sometimes you need to see that receipt to realize that you are running on fumes. And if there is something that is objectively stressful in your life and you are continuing to pretend that it's not affecting me, that massive shift at my job is not affecting me, the living through the war is not affecting me, like, whatever the thing is that you're trying to pretend is not the reason that you are feeling so run down and exhausted, it might very be the reason.
Yeah, it can be really hard. I know there are a lot of things that we can't change, but I'm thinking of many a fast 4 metabolizer that's a very dysregulated result. There are 8 possible results. I've mentioned this on past episodes, like our recent HTMA episodes, but a lot of these really driven, like burning the candle at both ends, goal getter, like they have their quote unquote shit together in so many areas, but they're feeling so depleted, get their results. They're a fast 4 and low minerals across the board, which tells me they're just churning through their resources. They are probably feeling really depleted. And I think sometimes people hear fast metabolizer, so they're like, oh, they think fast metabolism, skinny, or
I have such a fast metabolism.
no, but it's the common thread here is depletion. And I have had many clients who have had that result, and it's an eye opener. Aha, they're like, yeah, I know that that move across the country, that difficult breakup or relationship I'm in that's not fulfilling, or like not having time with friends, like that's weighing on me. So maybe this is something that you can really only explore and know what you need to fill your cup. But an opportunity, if you are someone who's burning the candle at both ends, is how can you slow down? It can feel really challenging when people get this result too, because their blood sugar is dysregulated. They might feel hangry between meals. They just want to move out of that state. But really, the opportunity is slowing down and doing less sometimes.
And adding in more play and more fun and more crafting.
Play. Crafting.
More blueberry muffins.
Might we suggest making bookmarks, crocheting little fruit
Getting
for your
yourself a Fuji
crossbodies?
film.
Yeah. Do I need another fiber arts hobby? I don't know. We'll see. We'll stick a quote.
I could teach you how to
now.
crochet.
Yeah, you do know how to do that. And you were doing not cross stitch, embroidery.
Oh, yeah, the needlepoint stuff I used to do for my nephews to fill in bags, yeah.
Needlepoint. Yeah, I heard that is a time and money suck, but
Yeah.
I would love to make some
fun.
Ornaments.
Crafting. Just craft. To sum
Just
up.
craft with
just
us.
Craft away your sorrows.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, stress, the devil, mental, emotional stress, the devil we know. We've talked about, I say tapping, meditation, breath work, expressive writing, crafting, all those things. Like choose from, I call it like self-care buffet. And you don't have to do the same thing every day, but maybe choosing something that will help you slow down, setting the boundaries that you need to. It's hard stuff, but it's essential, and it does make a difference. I've had clients who come back for their retest and they're like, girl, last time I saw you, it was fast forward. Things were going awry in my marriage, or job was really stressful. I was in a completely different place. Things have calmed down now. Maybe they set boundaries or changed jobs or just started to prioritize play in a different way, and things do look different. So you're not stuck either in a certain result on the HTMA. It really gives us a nice high-level peek at where some gaps are so that you can feel your best.
Yeah, hopefully.
That's really where it shines.
Definitely. And I know we probably called a lot of you out during this episode. Those fast forwards a lot of times are the ones skipping the rest periods or saying that they're doing strength training, but it's really just like some boot camp style class that they can't give up because they are addicted to the stress hormones. But yeah, I know you may feel called out by this episode, but we just love you, and we're helping you to see where those gaps are, because we know what is entirely possible for you. We know that you can go through this life feeling incredible, feeling like you have the space and the energy to play and to craft and to get it back into those things that you love doing. We know that you can have that stable energy where you don't feel like, I'm waking up, I can't seem to get a handle on my luteal phase. Like, why am I still dealing with this luteal phase insomnia? I'm doing all this stuff. We know just how truly wonderful and strong and capable you can feel in that beautiful body of yours. So if you are feeling like I'm not cracking the case on my own, but I want all those things, I want to feel like that, I want what they are talking about, I can't recommend enough an HTMA review, and STHH if you haven't been there yet, the club if you did STHH a while ago and you are just like thinking that you can continue doing this on your own but don't realize what a massive shift community will make for you. Even more than that, if you've been inside the club and you're like, I just can't seem to hold myself to the standard I want to be holding myself to, I'm telling you, upgrading to live coaching, even just for one training block, even just for the first month of a training block, to get someone to help you. Coach Veronica is amazing. She does our live calls in there. She will help you to see exactly what you are capable of. She will help you to dial in that form. She will help you to realize that you need to buy heavier kettlebells. And I guarantee you, we will get you feeling incredible. So don't think that you can do this alone. If you are still trying to piece those puzzle pieces together and it's just not quite lining up, I guarantee you, we love you so much. We want the absolute best for you. And we can make this happen in such a short amount of time if you show up for yourself and just jump in. Do it. It's going to feel great.
Yes. Let's balance those minis, get you feeling good. We'd love to support you and to root you on. So no matter what, we're cheering for you. Stay hydrated.
Ooh, stay hydrated.
Get yourself a salty, mineral-rich mocktail and maybe some blueberry muffies.
And unclench that beehole.
With a side of protein. Yeah.
Unclench that beehole with a side of protein. All right, we love you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the GYST podcast. As always, your ratings and reviews mean the world to us.
If you enjoyed this episode, take a second, take a little screenshot, throw it up on your Instagram story, and tag us so we can thank you properly for sharing this show with other women that it might help.
See you next week. We love you. Bye.